Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is a special program that focuses on everything Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Whenever we talk about Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, it is related with the history that it has got, with the timeline that it has got, with everything regarding the prosperity and the right to development that Ethiopia needs. In order to explain it to us, we have got Dr. Tirusew Asefa. He is professional in water resource and everything water resource. Thank you for blessing us with your time.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, let's start and delve into everything GERD. Whenever we talk about GERD, I want you to tell me, what is GERD for you?
Well, GERD for me is everything, as you just said. I think everything for GERD. The reason for that is it's not only electricity production, because electricity gets into all people know about, for example, the 17 development goals. You can tie back GERD to it, whether it's a direct generation of energy or implied prosperities through healthcare, school. It has a lot. So in terms of the economic impact itself, some of the studies we see that is, every dollar that we generate creates about 6 to 7 additional economic benefit. So GERD is really a game changer in that sense, because once you have this, you will lift a lot of people. 60 or so million people today, they don't have access to electricity. That's a lot. We are the first by number of people in Africa. I mean, you can add up maybe 5 to 10 countries together to just get to the number of people that don't have electricity in Ethiopia. So GERD means a lot for everyone. And this has been, tried for a long time. And finally, we're here. So yeah, I'm excited where we are.
Awesome. So for everyone who wants to know everything with regards to GERD, I want you to give us the inception and everything with the timeline in the history, starting with the inception and with what happened whenever we talk about the future and what has happened yesterday with EU agreeing with that of Egypt in order to accept the UNSC agreement and come up with a binding agreement. What does it mean? You tell us everything about it.
Yes, yeah. So this is a lot of question you put. It's very loaded question. So GERD, as its name, Renaissance Dam, before even it's called like that, there were different names. In fact, earlier it used to be a border dam without any name, or a Project X. So you can track back all the way to the emperor's time. And in fact, a significant study, one of them done by United States Bureau of Reclamation, was to study the possibility of putting several dams, not just one, cascades of dams. That's before that as well. Ethiopians, kings, and everybody coming in through Ethiopian history always wanted to use the river, but unfortunately we didn't get the chance one way or another. Your audience probably knows this complicated geopolitics, as well as our inability to put in place such a big project. But finally we broke the ground. Even before we break the ground in 2011. There were also other works trying to use Nile in general equitably within the 10, 11 countries. And that they tried, but Egypt and Sudan didn't want to sign on that. We call it a cooperative framework. They negotiated about 10 years. And by 2011, by 2012, they came to a place that some of them approved it, but not Egypt and Sudan. Only because of one single article, 14B, among like 47 articles, they agree. That single article basically said any project has to really recognize the existing status quo water use by Egypt and Sudan, which means zero water for us. So it has been there for a long time. We tried. And then after that, I think there are several milestones with, starting when we start to build. I would say the first when we start 2011, and then I would say the next one will be 2015, when we have an agreement, what we call Declaration of Principle. The 2015 Declaration of Principle paved the way for all actions that Ethiopia has been doing since basically 2011. Of course, it came 2015, but that allows, specifically says that the construction goes hand in hand with the filling of the dam. So as the central block goes up, you will hold more water. This is just, Dr. Saleshi called it, it's just physics. There is more water coming into the site than it can get out. So as you raise the bar, you hold more water. That's it. So there is no way for Ethiopia not to hold water other than stop construction. And that's not going to happen. We are not going to stop the construction. So the milestone in terms of after 2015 is when we started the first filling. That was the summer of 2020, and then this year we had the first generation of electricity through turbine number 10. That's also significant because now you already start to put into the national grid. In fact, the grid from GERD to all the way to the center Addis, close to Addis, is already finished. It's a matter of waiting to connect it to that. So they are able to send that. So already we are seeing the benefit. So even with one turbine, it's significant reduction. And then this year, we expect the third filling as well. So back to what the joint press they sent yesterday between EU and Egypt is basically what they're saying is what they said last year through the presidential statement. Most people confuse a resolution. It's not a resolution. It's a statement. And some of the, the Ambassador Taye, I think he was explaining us what it means as well. So that statement simply says that within a reasonable time, they have to have a binding, here is the issue, binding operation and filling agreement. Now,
what does that mean?
Exactly, I'm going that. So what binding means that there has to be a certain amount of water released from the Renaissance Dam forever. Basically, that's what it says. So binding, in principle, I don't disagree on binding if you know your own share. But the problem is Ethiopia doesn't have any share. So that means they're trying to say is that you are going to use GERD for only electricity, and when the drought comes, it's the problem of Ethiopia. So you have to just release all the water. So they are basically forcing Ethiopia as well to play God, basically. So it's impossible. And typically, international experience shows that you share the water and you share the drought. If there is a drought, everybody cuts a little bit. That's how it works, especially when we produce, about 86% of the total. So what they are saying is that Ethiopia must sign a binding agreement to release a certain amount of flows forever. It doesn't matter if it's the climate change. It doesn't matter if people upstream of the GERD want to drink water. In fact, Dr. Saleshi said, can we even drink water from it? Are we allowed? Isn't it ours? I work in water supply, and my work is delivering water for cities. And I've looked at some of the projection as well. They don't even let you for drinking. Now, that's the issue. Of course, Ethiopia is not going to sign, but that's basically in a nutshell. They cannot force it through the UN Security Council. There was simply a statement, but somehow they want to push Ethiopia. One thing I should say, in fact, a year before, the EU actually said, and I have that in some of my writings, the EU said, and I quote, that it is possible to reach a filling agreement, okay? Operation should come later on because it's related to water sharing. This was the EU position. I have it 2 years ago. Yesterday, it was a surprise for me when they flipped completely. What changed? Nothing changed. As far as we see, the same hydrology, same Ethiopia is building, nothing changed. So that's a little bit of a shift in their position too. So that's in a nutshell what they mean binding agreement.
Amazing. This takes us to the issue of the status quo that has been created with this water sharing and the agreements. So let's take this issue with that of the first filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and then the first generation, that is the 375 megawatts of the power which has been generated. What does it tell with the political message to the status quo, which has been created back in the days, and now the message is clear and loud from Ethiopia? What does the political message mean with the first generation of the 375 megawatts and for the political status quo, which has been created, especially since the 1959 agreement, which doesn't involve Ethiopia, which doesn't even have the concept of involving Ethiopia towards her own rights in order to have and use the benefits of her own water.
Correct. So the 1959 agreement you are mentioning is the extension of what they had before in 1927 or so. Basically, at that time, their share was a little bit less than from 1959. So basically, at 1959, they added additional thing. They give a veto power for Egypt. Basically, everybody has to have a permission to do anything upstream without, permission from Egypt, as well as they allocated all the waters. So at that time, the estimate was about 84 billion cubic meter. Of that, they say, okay, Egypt will get 15.5, Sudan get 18.5, and the rest 10 billion for evaporation, basically. So they basically put 100% use, and that's an issue too, by the way. So when they say we are going to get impacted, if you have 100%, and if I take 1%, you are going to be impacted by definition. So the issue is that they allocated everything for the two downstream countries. So one thing they say always that I see, they say, it's a unilateral action. Ethiopia is doing. By the way, everybody's doing unilateral. Egypt too. Egypt has done so many things unilaterally. In fact, there was going back, I saw recently somebody posted a Times Ethiopian English newspaper from 1950 something, 1750, I forgot now the exact date. Ethiopia at that time even was complaining regarding the water use. And when they started building the High Aswan Dam, 1970s, and then after that Toshka project, for example, late 1990s, we had one of the wettest in the history of the Nile Basin, basically, and it flooded. And the way Lake Nasser built was like there are 40 billion gallons for a flood protection. In fact, it filled that and it overflew. After that, they put significant pump to take the water out of the lake, just the upstream of the lake, actually, then take it into the desert, basically. So they didn't, tell Ethiopia. They didn't want to listen any of Ethiopia's opinion. The same thing.
Never inclusive.
Never. So now the point we come in that at that time the population was not that much. Egypt even used to be larger than Ethiopia. Now we are close to 120 million people in Ethiopia. Egypt is close to 105 million or so. Sudan is about 50 or so. Between the three of us, it's a quarter billion. So that's significant. And it would have been easier 20, 30 years ago, if we agree. And it's also easier today than 20 years from now. So the population is going to increase. So we have, a limited resource. So the question should be, rather than trying to impose a status quo unfair water allocation, the question should have been how best to use this water. Ethiopia is not going to use all the water. It's not going to make them thirst. I mean, there is nobody is trying to hurt them. It's just say we have a share as well. We need to use our share as well. But their position is so extreme that they don't want to let Ethiopia to use at all. If it were me, actually, they should even let a little bit, rather than focusing on the water, they should focus on a big picture economic work, so human-centered. So when you ask somebody what human needs, food, energy, water. So after a basic supply for Ethiopia too, Ethiopia is not going to use excessive amount upstream of the GERD because it will compromise its own electric production. There's no intent, because otherwise it's going to trade off. So Ethiopia will always generate electricity and send the water downstream. It's just a matter of controlling that. There may be times that when there is a drought, they can communicate, they can plan out. This is how it works here in the US. This is how it works in Africa, in all over the world. Here, for example, I can give you an example. Most of the time people, they don't talk, but there is a treaty between Canada and United States on Columbia River. So what they do is actually they create a 1 to 2 year outlook of operations. So several agencies from Ethiopia, from US side, and then from Canada, and they call it a guideline. In fact, what the language in the Declaration of Principle says a guideline, something similar like this. Of course, they have a treaty also, and that treaty is also flexible. Right now, they are negotiating. Anyone can stop that treaty if you give a notice 10 years ahead. That's a great example. How you need to create a cooperation, flexible agreement that you can use. The same thing with Colorado River Basin. Right now, there is quite a bit of drought. And what they're doing, they are subtracting or basically taking water from everyone, not just one upstream or downstream. So I think this should be a model for the Nile Basin as well. So share the water, share the risk as well. That's the only way I see it going forward.
Great. So whenever we talk about the share that Ethiopia has had and has been giving to the rest of the upper Nile River riparian countries, I think it needs to be explained in a manner that should be understood easily. For example, so many people now in Ethiopia and the rest of the world think that Ethiopia has had and has in hand lots of rivers, lots of rainfalls. But on the other side, they don't know, I think, that 70% of our water is going via Nile to the upper riparian countries. That is like giving my 70% of salary without even taking anything for myself. What does that mean? Does that mean like our rights to prosperity and a dignified life is always disregarded by the upper riparian countries like that of Egypt and Sudan?
Yes, so you raise an excellent point, and in fact, some scientists I see from Egypt as well, they want to use it from the political perspective. They kind of twist the science in a way, and they talk about rain. So rain is completely different story. So it's not the rain that you drink. It's not the rain that you generate electricity. It is the river flow. Rain has to convert to river flow. So by the time it's convert into river flow, it becomes only a fraction of that rain. Significant amount of rain is typically goes back to the atmosphere through what we call evapotranspiration. So basically a environmental need. So it's only 5 to 10% of a rain that ends up being a river flow. So to your point, Ethiopia has about 120 or so in total, basically river flows, if I add everything. So of this, 70%, as you said, is locked within the Nile Basin. So if they are taking 100% of what we have, as you just said, very well put, 70% of what we have. And I will give you another statistics. In fact, it's about 67, 68, you can call it about 70% of Ethiopia is classified as dry land. Not only we have only about 70% of our water locked in the Nile Basin, but the significant 2/3 of the Ethiopia is dry land, which means you need to use water that you have on this area to irrigate, to consume, to whatever it is. So in the future, in fact, many places would need one way or another use of the resource that we have. We can't just, give that. I mean, it's not. So that's one point. So it is 70% as well as the total amount is small compared to what's raining. So their talking point is you get so many billion, 100, I believe the number is 980 or something billion rainfall. Of that, ours 55 talking point, but that's not true. The rain doesn't convert to stream flow, all of them. And the other thing, we get only in 3 months, 4 months. Or, if you see the flow, we call it hydrology curve. If you see in 4 months, you get all the rains, 70%, 80% of the runoff comes in those time. And the other time, it's just dry. So what do you need to do? You need to build dam to be able to use it in a dry time. The dry time is significant, 7, 8 months of a year. If Ethiopia was able to live just off of rain, why do we have all this famine in the past? The drought, people dying, they have nothing to eat. You can tie it back 1983s, 1970s. All of them are related to what we call a climate cycle that almost, it comes in. We are in one of them right now, by the way. In the East, we have a lot of issues with drought for the 2-3 years in a row. So if Ethiopia was able to live off of only rainfall, why we have this problem throughout our history? It's impossible. So they know it, and we know it. So this is just a talking point. Ethiopia gets so much rain. We get so much rain. First, only a fraction end up being usable. Second, it comes in through 3 months. You have to hold it. Most of them, it is somewhere you can't build even dam. I mean, if we are going to use everybody's backyard, basically that's what they are saying. So this argument that Ethiopia has a lot of rain and should forfeit, 70% of its water resources, surface water resources, is just doesn't fly, scientifically indefensible at all.
That's well put. That's well put, because one of the condescending kind of facts is they have zero contribution towards.
Yes. Yes.
So much patronizing whenever we talk about this. So going forward, I'd like you to focus on the issue of the Green Legacy Initiative that is pioneered by the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Dr. Abiy Ahmed. So this month and the coming months, it's the 4th year that we are celebrating the Green Legacy Initiative. What is the relationship between the Green Legacy Initiative with that of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance?
Yeah, this is a great program, and really is I can't say enough, and I have been saying this in the past as well. The program itself is an insurance for GERD, not just only for GERD. I can cite so many other uses as well. So from GERD perspective, the huge issue is the reducing the sediment. The soil erosion is significant. The only way you can stop that is not by going to the dam and dredging it. That's very expensive. Sudan spent millions of dollars and they have very small reservoir. In fact, the one next to GERD is like 10% of the GERD. So there is no way to spend that kind of money. The only way to control is to put the soil in its place. And that's by planting trees and changing the land cover. So if one of the things really shocked me for the first time, like everybody else, I was so happy to see the picture 2020. If you see those pictures, it's just a muddy water. And I'm happy and I'm looking at it. Wow, this is great in terms of we get to this point. But when I look at the water, it was, wow, how much sediment? Well, I looked it up. The design document says every 50 years, we may be losing about 10% of the storage every 50 years. So that means whatever we fill that first year, that's gone by 50 years. And those calculations are not exact science. How you get to those calculations, there is so many variables. How fast the rain was coming down, how slope is the terrain, what type of the soil you have, whether it rained before or not. It's not exact science. Just to tell you is we can easily underestimate even that. So the only solution is that buying insurance after investing so much, really it should be, a devastation for all of us to see its capacity reduced because of sedimentation in few years. So this is incredible. So we have to do it. It changed the climate as well. We have a study here in Florida State University. I interact with many climate scientists. So typically, and they run these simulations and how climate, produces rainfall and so on. So it's demonstrated fact that changing the land cover through plantings, through crops and so on, tends to increase rainfall. So that's another thing. So Now, whether that rainfall, how much of it becomes surface runoff, that's hydrology. We can't answer that. It's not trivial because some of them will be taken up by the plant as well. But typically it changes. We have data here. We have 100 years of rainfall. Close to me, we looked at one of the data close to the airport. As you can imagine, there's everything is asphalt, no green, and so on. And then we look at other areas that are also 100 years data of rainfall. We see a statistically significant rainfall difference from this location where there is no plant, everything is asphalt, compared to a few miles up. So there is also a study in the Midwest that shows that increased cropping patterns, putting more trees and so on, actually increase the intensity of the rainfall and the amount as well. So it's very well documented that it will increase rainfall. That's huge for us. Anything we can get. The other is it tends to modulate, we said, it tends to change how flashy the water comes in. So what covering crops and plant, what it does is it gives time for the water for the rain to get into the soil. That means it will get slowly coming out. So that means rather than having these 3 months, 4 months, flashy, everything coming in after that dry, it tends to give more. And then that 4 months could be 5 months, 6 months, I don't know. But we can get there by, through studies once we know, but it is guaranteed to modulate the flow as well. So increasing rainfall, we can calculate to get there how much it would increase and how much the net benefit is, but definitely helping changing the local climate, and as well as the big one is helping not to have so much of sediment getting into the dam. You saw right now, most people, they can see that. Right now, if you see the water coming out of the Renaissance Dam is like a bottled water. You can see it, green, looks like a swimming pool. Why? Because everything else is being held upstream. So what gets in is really, really muddy water. What gets out is pretty close to drinking water. So that shows you it is behind. So I said, in one of my article, it is an insurance, but GERD also, and this is an example for many, help that helps Sudan. From water quality, I can tell you that maybe half of the cost that you will put into to make it for drinking water. So, but GERD needs to save itself too. And GERD would save itself through the green legacy, which is an insurance basically. So a policy we are buying when climate change, expectation is to have this erratic rainfall. So you have, that means it will allow you the land cover to modulate that. You don't get these flashy flows, and by the result, then you will have a better hydrology. Overall, it's amazing. I mean, I cannot say enough. I mean, I'm always excited when I hear the green legacy. I can see what it brings. So it is a great effort. Yeah.
My final question is with regards to the economic and social impacts of the GERD, because it's uniting Ethiopians at the same time, and it's getting a lot of benefits for Ethiopians at the same time. Let's delve into that.
Yeah, so that's a great one. There is so many areas GERD benefit Ethiopia, not only Ethiopia. In fact, I should say that even for Sudan, I have people here, we meet almost every month, Sudanese professionals. And recently they published a paper that they look at what is the impact, positive impact of GERD to Sudan. And they didn't even look at the protection from flood. We remember 2020, so many people died, but without looking at that, only increased electricity and agriculture. What they came up was that it would increase Sudan's GDP, the gross domestic product, by about $1 to $2 billion every year for the next 40 to 60 years. This is without paying anything, simply waiting for Ethiopia to finish GERD. Most places, they actually pay to get this kind of return. United States paid Canada to build a dam on Columbia River for example. So coming to Ethiopia, GERD helps not only us, but as I said, for Sudan as well. For us, of course, the electricity is the first one. Electricity, each dollar multiplies. It has a multiplying impact effect as well. $1 end up being $6 to $7 when it gets in. It's not only just electricity. It is about healthcare. It's about education. It's about our sisters and mothers not spending half of their day just looking for a firewood. There is so many consequences. In fact, if you just recently, we started looking as well, this study has already started in terms of the master plan for GERD that include tourism, that include several other related activities. As you know, when this is full, it will have more than 240 kilometers of water and several islands as well. So a master plan that will allow to just on tourism. You know, people comes here all over the place to see the Colorado River dams. The Hoover Dam, for example, is a famous one. So I can see Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is actually a much larger than that. So I can see as a tourism attraction as well. I can see opportunity for learning as well. You know, I work with the students, PhD, masters, and so on. Most of them, they would like to work on an issue that GERD provides a good example, how to operate, how to link GERD's production with other dams and electric generations. There is just so many things related with it. That's why I think, you know, to me, it's a game changer in a sense that we are learning so much. And I expect that other places to build some smaller dams, it would be easier for Ethiopians. They have learned so much from here. This is a huge dam. Potentially, they could even go and work as a consultant on construction companies, other Africans. So we can export, you know, trained and people who knows how to build them, because now they are doing this as well. So the GERD benefit, socio-economic, and most important to say, it brought us together. It gives a sense of unity. You know, that one thing that brings everyone to the same page is GERD. So this is, it's like our soccer team when they win, we are cheering them. Something similar like this. So it brings people, it really creates that society togetherness. And when you have that kind of society, you know, it's the sky's the limit. You would be thinking just how to improve our life, improve our, you know, our people's life, the rural communities and so on, rather than something else that we don't want to be, you know, engaged in. So that sense of unity is nowhere reflected than GERD. So to me, GERD is really everything. I mean, that's why this have been so much difficult to get to here. And the road's not going to be easier as well, but we are already here. So it's 2 years, 3 years. So the expectation is within the next 2 to 3 years, we may be able to finish this. Once we finish, I don't think we will look back. This we will see. This probably is the single one big project that we would look back 20, 30 years that change Ethiopia for good. That's how I feel.
Awesome. Dr. Tirusew Asefa, thank you for blessing us with your time, because you gave us everything with regards to the inception of the GERD. You have told us everything with the agreements that Ethiopia has had and the way forward with the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.